Welcome on in. Happy Wednesday, Dbacks fans. Here for another episode of Dbacks Dispatch with your hosts, Brett, Brandon, Gabe, and another little bit of a appearance from our man Nugget, who will be here to discuss a little bit of some non-roster invitees that we'll kind of get into in the meat of the show in a little bit. But if this is your guys' first time here joining us on the show, again, welcome in. Appreciate each and every one of you. Love to have you here. If you guys could like, comment, subscribe, really helps us out on the YouTube side. Rate us 5 stars on Apple, Spotify, or wherever else you might listen to podcasts. Like I said, it really does do immense help for our show and all that. Check us out on Twitter and Blue Sky. Got some banger tweets. I've gotten myself into the pool of some bangers. That Gerardo Parra one was me today. You know, had to go down memory lane a little bit. Make sure to join our Discord as well. It should be in the description. It is free. You don't got to pay $75 to get access to it, and it is absolutely popping off. Got not only our man Nugget in here, but a bunch of OGs and a bunch of new people joining seemingly almost every day. So again, make sure you join the Discord. Great place to be, especially as we get closer to spring training and even throughout the season. We got like game day threads, everything like that. So that's where you're going to want to join us. And then also make sure you guys check out all the articles over on azsnakepit.com. A bunch of great deep dives, insights, opinion pieces, and then just some more fun ones here and there. Honestly, it's not just like stats and analytics. Like that is a main thing, but there are some fun ones over there. So make sure you guys go check out the Snake Pit as well. But before we kind of get into, like I was talking about, the non-roster invitees was going to be the bulk of our show. We had a little bit of D-backs news yesterday, as the D-backs did bring back Randall Grichuk. They kind of solved the right-handed DH hitting needs, as they brought back Grichuk on a 1-year, $5 million deal with incentives to get it to, I believe, $5.5 million. Kind of funny because he did opt out of the mutual option, which was $6 million, so he loses himself around $500,000 to $1 million, depending on how he performs. But you know what? He's still getting at least paid. He's bringing some pop back to the lineup, so we have one less thing to worry about. So kind of wanted to get everyone's initial thoughts and reactions. I'll start where I normally do, Gabe. What did you kind of think when the news kind of came out yesterday that we brought back the big Gritch energy to kind of solve some of our right-handed power needs?
I mean, I guess I like the move. He was really good when he was here with us. It sort of addresses what I have been talking about, their need. I think that they needed a right-handed bat, a right-handed DH specifically. My issue is just going to be, is this a part-time job like it was last year? Is he just going to bat against lefties? And I know he has about an 800 OPS against righties, but his average is a little low. But it seems like Mike Hazen is pushing towards Pavin taking the at-bats versus the lefties, versus the righties, which concerns me a little bit. Like, I know he was good. He had almost a 900 OPS, but that was like, about 150 at-bats last year. Like, I don't know how much he's going to be able to replicate that, if, anything near that. But it was a good signing. I feel like maybe you should have gotten something, I don't know, maybe a little more supplemental, maybe a guy who could play the infield. We have enough outfielders in this organization. As of right now, we don't have anybody who can cover second, unless they're going to give Lawler a shot. So if Lawler's going to be able to come up with this team right away, then that's totally fine. I think this team is set. And if they're not going to, then I feel like maybe they should have gotten at least maybe a left-handed supplementary bat.
Yeah, so that's a good point. I do agree. Got a bunch of outfielders. We'll have a little bit of outfielder talk as well, as there was some rumors and whatnot that we had in the Discord. Which again, join the Discord. Great place to be. But yeah, I definitely get the thought process and kind of agree with you a little bit on there. Maybe it would have been nice to have a little bit more infield pop, but it seems like they always kind of like to go for some utility Kevin Newman-esque guys, where if they're trying to solve their right-handed hitting DH, I guess they're not going to go necessarily that route. But Brandon, passing it on to you, what are some of your initial thoughts and reactions to us bringing back Randall Grichuk for another go around in the desert?
Finally, like, the further that the offseason went, I'm like, he hasn't signed anywhere. And then there were the rumors that he was close with the Pirates. And I'm like, okay, so he hasn't signed. We haven't done anything to address, like, why not bring back Randall Grichuk? So I was very pleased when we saw the news, that he is coming back, because not only does he fulfill that right-handed DH, it's another outfielder, and it's a right-handed outfielder. The one thing that we have is a surplus of left-handed hitting outfielders. Jake, Alec, and Corbin are all left-handed hitting. So just having that righty, I think, is going to balance out very, very well. I personally, based on his numbers from last year, I think he should get a lot more of the right and left DH, because I don't trust Pavin in more than, for me, max of 250 at bats. Like, for me, that's the cap. Like, that's the very max. Anything more, I don't feel comfortable, and I don't, with the division that we're in. We're gonna need to win 90 plus at least. So just glad that Randall Grichuk is back. I think he declined the option because he thought he was going to get more money on the open market. He didn't. So let's just go back.
Yes, I imagine kind of like a lot of us thought that maybe the free agency moved a little bit slow. I know we're already in February, only less than 10 days from pitchers and catchers reporting. So a little bit late of a signing, but we obviously saw on Twitter that he's been putting in the work. So maybe he was just kind of hopeful, but you know what? I'm glad to have him back. Not too expensive, so it'll be nice to add. But passing it on now to our guest of the evening, which again, thank you very much for joining us, sir. Mr. Nugget, I want to get your thoughts and opinions on the bringing back Grichuk here to the desert.
Overall, I do think it was probably the best option. I think it was Derek Montilla of PHNX who said it best. The best replacement for Randall Grichuk is Randall Grichuk. And overall, the numbers from last year were incredible against righties. Every expected stat, every regular stat looked beautiful. I'll just note that the new platoon, in terms of the stats now, we're looking at combined. So Pavin versus righties, and then Grichuk versus lefties. They hit to a 304 average, a 373 on base percentage, a 543 slug, and a 916 OPS. This is very reminiscent of the same kind of platoon side we saw last season with Jock and Randall. But I do think that Pavin has made some serious strides. He made some serious swing changes, and in both AAA and in MLB, he looked much different than what we're used to. Of course, we're used to the fact that Pavin, he had some good swing decisions, but he just didn't capitalize. I think I'm a lot more comfy with him going into this season just because of the fact that his swing is that much better and he's that much more balanced. Minimum 100 plate appearances. I forgot what it was specifically, but it was like having a certain like xWOBA and not chasing and having an extremely high barrel rate, basically a perfect hitter. Pavin was one of them. So
yes, I think that the mixture, I know Brandon, Gabe, and yourself as well brought up the obviously that platoon with them. I still, obviously, you know, my opinions on Pavin Smith have been very clear in the past, but I'm open to be proven wrong. Hopefully he doesn't get like the 300-400 plate appearances. I kind of in the same boat as Brandon. I think that handled right-handed pitching pretty well, at least in the few chances that he got here and there. I know it's a pretty small sample size, but I think he'd be still pretty solid, at least getting maybe like 65% of the at-bats at DH, maybe even closer to 60, depending on how well Pavin is hitting righties. But, you know, we'll kind of have to wait to see. Before we move on into some of the rumors and all that I mentioned, obviously I want to, you know, shout out some of the comments and some of the people we got here in the live chat. Corbin Barrels and Red Sox Nation, appreciate you guys as always. OG's coming through. Corbin Barrels does bring up, this was a little bit of news that dropped maybe like 5-10 minutes before we actually even went live tonight. Obviously the Dbacks already had their right-handed hitting options locked up with Grichuk yesterday, and one of the names that Gabe brought up in the past shows a bunch about maybe a potential right-handed option was Pete Alonso. And Pete Alonso, the polar bear, is actually going back to the Mets on a 2-year deal with an opt-out after this year for $30 million. So he is officially off the board. Much more expensive than what the D-backs Grichuk. So that's, you know, not too surprising. But, you know, I guess Boris has got to get his guy at least some kind of money, and then hopefully he can get him some more. He seems like a 50-50 hit rate at this point.
He has another client that's still not signed that we have talked quite a bit about.
Yeah. Say, and then Corbin Barrow's also brought up saying he seriously want a legit closer. Be happy. He can always trade a pick and up for another bat later if needed. We'll get to that in just a second here. Got a little potential. Again, just rumors, nothing solid, nothing like fully confirmed yet, but at least something to note. Cam in here. Cam, appreciate you. Always love to see you in here. Same with you, Eddie. All you guys are MVPs. Thank you very much for spending your time here, chatting up with us. But to kind of get to the chase with it, like I said, some of the rumors, if you guys were in the Discord, which you should be, like I said, in the description and all that, our man Nugget here had some little bit of, telegrams coming through from the Chinese spy that we'll call him, about some potential names that the D-backs could, maybe be moving to address some of those bullpen issues. Obviously, with Grichuk, now being back in the desert, we have 5-6 outfielders, potentially even more with some of the other guys that are, like K-Rob and Barossa that are fighting for an outfield spot. So there's plenty of depth out there for them to deal with. And there were 2 names that I feel like, not surprisingly, we've all kind of like kept in the back of our mind as guys that could be moved. But there was a little bit of news. So Nugget, passing it on to you. Obviously, you're the one that kind of, again, not broke the news, but at least shared us maybe some wheels are in motion on some of these names that the D-backs have to potentially deal with.
Yeah, so a lot of these rumors surrounding Jake and Alec actually started much longer ago, and it was when they got Christian Pache. Christian Pache is specifically designated as a 4th outfielder, and he would very specifically fit that role being in Arizona. With that, though, there's the note of Grichuk re-signing, which now puts him at, I believe, 8 or 9 outfielders that are able to play on the MLB roster or will have a serious say in getting onto the MLB roster. The 2 names of note were Alec and Jake. And from what I've heard, they are both under 4 years of control, and they are willing to move them for other pieces. It would not be straight up for a closer. It would likely not be that way, at least. It would probably be for another bat or potentially a starter. If there was something like a closer, for instance, and I think the name that we're all kind of thinking of as of late is Pete Fairbanks, it would probably have to be sweetened up with a few prospects who could probably get to MLB or will be on the 40-man roster in 2025.
Yeah, say the some of the names that you brought up, I wasn't too familiar with them in the Discord earlier, but there was obviously maybe a potential trade that you threw out there as kind of like a mock trade. I believe it was Jake, and then like you said for Pete Fairbanks, and then who were the other 2 kind of Rays guys that you mentioned could potentially be some of that like sweetener in the deal?
I could check on that quickly. I just want to double check on this. It's for Yaniel Correa, who's their number 14 per Pipeline, and Austin Vernon, who's number 33 for Fangraphs. Both are guys who are at the AA level or higher. They both flash similar like pitch grades that I think that are very Kaplan-esque in terms of a fastball you can work off of and a good slider. And both would be able to effectively be on a roster or at least fight for the roster at some point this year. So these would be like your sweeteners in the deal. I also think that with their catching issues in Tampa, I think if we threw in a Christian Serta, that wouldn't be too shocking either.
That makes sense. I know we kind of got the catcher position locked down, at least for the foreseeable future with Gabby Moreno and potentially ADC, if he can, kind of figure out the defensive metrics back there. So I could see a guy like Serta being kind of moved in a deal. But Gabe, I want to pass it to you next. Kind of get some of your thoughts on, obviously the wheels in motion on, or potential wheels in motion on King Alec and Jake the Snake out there, and as potential guys that could no longer be a D-back.
Yeah, I think this is one of those things that we've talked about, specifically with prospects, about not being too precious with them. Like, as much as we love them, at times it is the right move to make, to go out and get somebody who has a proven track record like Fairbanks, although I know he had some injury issues. So I don't know how much I'd be willing to give up for him because of that. And Corbin made him his son last year too. So, if Corbin is seeing him well when he was slumping, like, who knows how great Pete Fairbanks has been. At least he's been training with the team. It's not like some of these other guys that are still in the free agency market where they're not really working out with anybody, any of the coaches, any of the teams. So a trade would make the most sense. We don't have to, pay the relievers, because I know I put out a tweet out there about Alex Bregman. Like, what if the D-backs are a team that could go after him? A lot of people are saying, well, with what money? And it's like, well, it's not your money to spend anyways. But if there's a certain cap that the D-backs are working with, then this is a solution where they could get out and get a high-powered reliever, and maybe something else alongside of that, which is making a trade. And sometimes you have to let go certain guys that we love, and we all love Varsho, but look who we got. We got Gurriel and Moreno for Varsho. So like I said, we can't be too precious, and it's gonna hurt for a bit. But as soon as we see these guys performing with the team, then we'll quickly get over it. And I think personally, I'd rather get rid of Jake. As much as I like Jake, he does go through these cold stretches. Like last year in September, he really struggled compared to how he was at the beginning of the year. And I just trust Alex athleticism and just his Gold Glove defense, and that's what we needed sorely last year.
Yeah, we discussed that kind of a bunch in the Discord and even our group chat. I'm on the same boat as Gabe. I love Jake, but I'd rather sell high on him and keep Alec, because I know his exit velocity and defense out there. Like, exit velocity is good, just the launch angle is what he needs to work on, but his defense alone is so good and is borderline Gold Glove worthy when he's healthy out there. So I want to pass it to Brandon, obviously. Kind of get your thoughts on some of the rumors and all that, and how sad you would be on potentially one of these guys going, and which one would maybe hurt less. But as to Gabe's point, sometimes you got to give up something to get something.
I will say he's not Jake the Snake. He's Cactus Jake. Jake the Snake. There's only one Jake the Snake.
I just like the rhyming.
I know. I think between the two, Jake, you're selling high on right now. Like Alec, I don't know if right now you're getting the better player of the two. I think ceiling wise, yes, it's Alec, and that's why I want them to hold on to him, because he is a future Gold Glove winner. There's no doubt in my mind that if he plays consistently at the major league level, so if he plays probably 120 plus games, he will be in the running for a Gold Glove. I believe it was in 2023. He was a finalist for the Gold Glove. Brendan Doyle is unreal. Like, Brendan Doyle is one of the best defensive center, and he literally has to cover acres there in Colorado. So I personally, like, I don't know. Like, it just depends on what we're trading for. Like, if it's Fairbanks, I don't know. I'd rather them do it for Halsey, but I know he only has one year left, so that one kind of feels like not great. So, but I love Corbin Barrel's suggestion. Pavin Smith for Pete Fairbanks. I am all aboard that train. There might be some people who are not in favor of that. A lot of people like Pavin. It's not that I don't like Pavin. I just don't think he is a 300 plus at bat player. Eddie also brings up a really good one. I would do Jake for this one. Duran, closer for the Twins, also a very good suggestion. I don't know if Mike Hazen's I also don't think Mike Hazen's going to trade Alec. People have been asking for him for 3 years, and he has stood his ground until now. Why would he change? So I don't think they're ready to move on from Alec.
Yeah, no, you're jumping, Nugget.
I just had 2 quick notes. For one, I believe that they did attempt to trade for Ryan Helsley, but the price was staggeringly high. From what I heard, it was something like Jake. It was one of our top 10 guys, and then there was someone else thrown on the back end. So it was for a 1-year rental. It was a ridiculous price. So I would assume that with Helsley, it was not necessarily for a lack of trying, rather this is one of those moves where a team's like, okay, come and get them, and then they just jack the price up. And I guess
I think I heard it was Jake Diaz and like one other somewhat high prospect.
Human Lin, maybe.
Yeah, it was kind of.
I was like, Hazen, thank you for not doing that, because that is way too much. Way too much.
I also note that this is not too shocking to me because the team actually did this last year. They traded Dominic Fletcher for Christian Mena, and even though neither have really hit at MLB level, we could already kind of see what's going on with that. Dominic Fletcher had an OPS near 500 at MLB level last season, and Christian Mena throws 94 mile per hour changeups and 90 mile per hour curveballs.
Yes, it definitely would be a steep trade to go get a guy like Helsley, but I mean, I could be talked into Fairbanks. I could be definitely talked into a guy like Duran, which I believe,
and a guy with like Helsley, like we were talking about the trade, what was proposed earlier with those 3 or 4 guys. That's a trade you do in August or at the trade deadline, at the end, when you look up and you're like, oh man, we're a couple games behind the Dodgers. We get this high powered closer, you couldn't even win the division and you can be a true competitor in the, for the World Series, like what they did with Seawald and stuff like that. Like if you see an opening there and you're sure, like, okay, this is the move we make. Same with the Cubs with Chapman. And, we've seen this a few times where teams go out and get these high power, or the Dodgers with what's his face from the White Sox, whatever his name is.
Michael Kopech.
Sorry,
yeah, Kopech.
Kopech. I believe he closed. Oh no, it was Buehler, right? Who closed out the World Series, but Kopech was instrumental in the run. So if you got to give up Jake, if you got to give up certain guys where you're like, it might be a lot to pay for, but this is our window to win and to, almost guarantee a World Series appearance, that's when you do it. But early on like this, I don't think so.
Yeah, I kind of like Gabe's point. It's definitely one of those where you don't want to like overpay. Like I know it's going to be a hefty price, especially usually at the deadline. Guys are always looking for additions to the bullpen, so at some point you're going to have to pay. But I do kind of agree with you. It's like you don't want to just like sell a little bit too high or a little bit too much too early on, to where if those guys are available, like let's say the Twins aren't doing as well as people are thinking, Duran's still out there, maybe the Cardinals are like, you know what, we're just going to get anything for Helsley while we can. Then you kind of make that trade there because, like you said, it could be a nice jolt into the team's energy and kind of like give them, like you said, what they need to either get over the hump for the division or just at least fully secure a wild card spot, which we all know because we talked about it a bunch last year. That final month, how much some of those games, even in the middle of the season when Seawald blew a few, how they can just be very crucial. You need every game you possibly can at a certain point in the season. But we're probably, I wouldn't be surprised. Obviously, I don't have the contact info for our Chinese spy that's giving us some of the information on the rumors and all that. But I'm hoping that some of that does come to fruition and we do kind of get a little bit of an answer to our bullpen search in the coming days, because it'd be nice to have them in camp ready with the team to go when pitchers and catchers, fully report here in what, like 7 days, 8 days?
A week from today.
Okay. Here's the thing, and I literally, this literally happened yesterday, somewhere around noon. Hazen spoke to media, and he said notes that, yes, I'm looking for bullpen and I'm looking for relievers. And then he decided, and he kind of slipped up here because he said, yeah, the offense is going to stay the same unless a trade happens. So he kind of, I don't know, it felt like he kind of just dropped the ball there a bit. Just kind of like, oh, well, unless a trade happens.
Judged it. Sorry.
It feels like he kind of slipped up. Oh, yeah, he did judge it. Just a bit.
Just a bit. But yeah, so he's usually pretty tight when it comes to pause. He's usually pretty secure when it comes to some of his wording and some of the press conferences on, like, keeps his cards as close to his chest, doesn't really let anybody get a peek in his hand. But he definitely seemed like he was a little more open in that one than he was before. So hopefully, maybe it's either a good thing. Maybe he's trying to like deke out these teams in try to get another classic Mike Hayes job. Like Cam said, Hazen said no thanks. I'm the one who does the fleecing, because he does seem to do a lot of fleecing the last few years. Welcome in Bubba as well, by the way. Always a pleasure to see you in here. Joining. Thanks for hopping in. But to unless there's any final thoughts from you guys, obviously on I know it's just kind of rumors, so nothing fully concrete, but I guess we can kind of dive in here to the big, news that I guess not news, but the big, main topic and discussion of tonight's show, as the D-backs, I believe, last Thursday, Friday, one of those days, sent out their non-roster invitee list, and there's a few names to note, obviously, for pitchers, kind of who stuck out to me. We talked about him a bunch when Nugget joined us for the previous show, where we went over the international prospects and even kind of talked about some guys in the system to look out for. Kyle Ament and Kyle Backus. They got a non-roster invitee, as long as everyone's kind of familiar with Thiago Vieira. Josh Winter was a new guy they picked up. Looked like he, at least could get something out of nothing as long as he stays healthy. Christian Serta, we mentioned him earlier, as a possible guy that could be put into a trade to kind of bolster up, the return for the team that are dealing with us. Tristan English, Gino Groover, I really those two names stuck out to me. And then for the outfielders, obviously Christian Pache, the Braves legend. Legend is stretching it. And then Christian Robinson, who still has seemed like he's been a prospect for absolutely almost like half a decade at this point. But Nugget, you're the one that knows a lot. I feel like every D-backs fan at least knows a lot of these names, but I feel like you have a deeper dive and a deeper source and well of knowledge for some of these guys. So I kind of wanted to pass it to you first. Who's the first one on the non-roster invitee list that, kind of stuck out to you that you are really going to be having your eye on their battle when it comes to spring training?
If there was a name that I would see here, and I would guess I would put it in like the Andres Chaparro category, where they basically jump up in value and then they act as a big piece, whether for us and for another team, I'll go with Juan Murillo. Juan Murillo is originally out of Venezuela. He is a behemoth. He's only 25. He spent 8 years in the Dodgers organization, but some notes on him, though, is the fact that his fastball is pretty easily graded at 65 with like a 70 grade on a 20/80 scale. We're talking about 98 to 102 with ride, something like 18 inches of vertical break with a little bit of run. Strong slider that goes around it. Has a nice workshop cutter that can make him like a big upside arm for the Diamondbacks. Basically, he could be the 1A to a Justin Martinez, or the 1B to a Justin Martinez. Command is a bit spotty, though. That will be the biggest thing to work around. And he's become more ground ball oriented. The kind of name I'm thinking of in terms of that style with the high velo would probably be like a Ben Joyce.
I'd be okay with that. I know.
I absolutely would too. He threw so many pitches at like 103. I think there was one that almost at one. It was like 103.6 or something. Like, it was crazy.
Some team needs to free Ben Joyce from the Angels, because my goodness.
And Mike Trout.
One of the longest play. I mean, Mike Trout's not going anywhere with that contract, but at least Ben Joyce is, your arm, and he's not Mason Miller, where I don't think he'd cost as much, but hey, that'd be kind of electric to have. Even if the D-backs again have the, like you said, his name Murillo. I don't want to.
Yeah, Juan Murillo.
Murillo, yeah. It'd be nice if Murillo could turn into a Ben Joyce-esque kind of guy. So that'll definitely be a name that I'm gonna keep my eye out for. Gabe, Brandon, any thoughts on the first one of the non-roster invitees that Nuggets suggest that we, kind of have an eye out for?
I mean, just the main thing, just looking out for velocity. Like, that's kind of what this team needs and has needed for a while. And it's good to see that they're starting to focus more on getting guys with higher velocity, a higher ceiling for the velocity as well. Although I know, our big guy in the minors, Yumin Lin, he throws about like 89, 91. So I'm a little worried there, but overall, he seems to be a guy to watch so far.
Nice. Say, Brandon, what about you? Any thoughts on Murillo?
I think it's an interesting comp that Nugget gave, like sort of like Justin Martinez type of thing. Like, we've seen the sort of development that he's made the last couple of years. Like, I remember watching him versus San Diego in 2023. Like, that dude couldn't hit the strike zone. Literally, like, everything was like balancing. It was high, it was low. I was like, God, like, this guy is great stuff, but he's just not ready. And then we saw what sort of improvement he made in 2024. So if we had another guy in this pen that had that sort of, yes, Brett, you have been on that train pretty much since the beginning.
I'll always get it. Any chance I get to talk about it, I'm going to talk about it.
Like
Mark Believers Unite.
I looked at his minor league number. Like they're not bad in minor league numbers. Like so, there's definitely something there. So I think I think this would be someone to watch out for because that is what we are missing, some flamethrowers, like Gabe said, out of the pen. Like we just need those guys. Like we have a lot of pitch to contact guys, and that scares me. That really, really does. Because once that command goes, we saw what happened with Paul Sewell. So it's
even a guy like Luis Frias who could throw the ball hard, but could either throw it down the middle or would just miss.
So I would rather I'd rather if you miss middle in, I'd rather you throw 95, 96 than 88, 89. So I think that's probably one name that I definitely, for myself, will keep an eye on.
I could see him getting a bunch of work early on because it seems like some of the obviously guys like Gallon, Burns, Kelly, Erod can't throw Monty in there because he needs all the work he can get. We saw what happened last year when he had limited spring training time. But I wouldn't be surprised if Murillo kind of gets some more of those bulk innings. Once guys like Fott, Nelson, Tommy Henry, I imagine they'll still get some starts here and there. But Murillo wouldn't surprise me to be one of those guys where they kind of give him a few extra innings early on to see all right, are you going to be in the early cuts or are we going to keep you around here because you really got some interesting stuff here. But that was definitely a name that I didn't have on my radar, so I'm definitely going to have to keep some tabs on him as we go through spring. And then even if he doesn't make the opening day roster, as a name where if the D-backs need some internal help before obviously making a trade, maybe he's a guy that they try to bring up, whether it's an injury or just somebody in the pen is struggling. So first one off the board for our non-roster invitees, Nugget, who was the second name that you had that you wanted to have D-backs fans kind of keep an eye on?
I would say this is probably one of the more underrated names and probably a guy that doesn't show up on many, not even a top 50 list, would be Lister Sosa. Sorry, I'm going to sound like I have a lisp trying to say that, but he is a very interesting arm. He's from the Dominican Republic, and he comes from a higher slot, probably more like a 1 o'clock slot than anything. This stuff does play up a bit. The fastball is only about 94 to 96. It gets up to 98. It has very good ride, though. It's seriously good up in the zone. It's a 60 to 65 grade. Slider is more of like a death ball, and it's his main whiff pitch. It's about 85 to 88. A solid changeup, too. He reminds me a bit of a Kevin Ginkel, but maybe with a more solidified fastball.
Looking at some of his minor league numbers, seemed like he obviously struggled a little bit in Visalia, but had some pretty decent numbers in Hillsborough and Amarillo. And the fact that he went from low A to high A to double A in the same season, decent amount of innings. Looks like he pitched around like 50 or so. The strikeouts and everything look pretty solid too. Obviously, the walks may be something of concern, but 45 strikeouts to 14 walks in Hillsborough, and then 12 strikeouts to only 4 walks in 13 innings pitched in Amarillo. Do I have that? Yeah, Amarillo. Thank you. I always mix up the two, but that's honestly some pretty intriguing stuff. So one, pretty cool name, but two, I do like some of the aspects when it comes to some of his makeup there. So that's definitely a name that I didn't even know about him. So I'm gonna have to do a little more research into him. But Brandon, Gabe, pass it on to you, gentlemen. What are your thoughts on Lister Sosa? Yeah, that's a strange one to bring up.
You can't do it without the lisp. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, he's a guy that has like about a 3.5 ERA in the minor leagues, especially when you look at a place like Hillsborough, which is still very batter friendly, and especially Amarillo. We've seen guys go to Amarillo and like Seth Beer go in there and hit 600 just because of how good it is for hitters. And so the fact that he's able to go out there, put up a 3.4 3.6 ERA in Amarillo, it shows that he does truly have something there. He has a good form. He seems to have like a big body, so he is still youngish. He's not as young as some of these other guys, but he could still grow up and to be even more of a harder thrower. He's only about 23 years old, so yeah, he seems to have a pretty high ceiling. I'm interested to see what he has, how his pitches look, and because there's obviously not as much available tape on him so far. So if you're going to the games or whatever, it's really good to see what he has in his arsenal and how the ball moves for him. Because yeah, I mean, he seems to be a really interesting guy.
Yeah, say the point of it seems like a lot of guys in the minor league. The D-backs minor league pitchers are just cursed with being in borderline mini course fields. It seems like with just giving up a lot of hard contact. But his strike percentage looks pretty solid. So at least he, kind of like on the point of we were talking about needing a little more flamethrowers that can keep it in the zone. At least it seems like he's getting in the zone. But Brandon, thoughts on Mr. Lister?
Yeah, Lister Sosa. I just think it's a really cool baseball name. Yeah, I just think the whole fact that it's literally that 1 o'clock angle is a interesting spot. Like the ball is gonna get on you pretty fast. So like that 94 may look a little faster. So I am actually pretty impressed with that strikeout per 9. Like it's based on how he looked in Hillsborough in 23. It was at 8. And then if you combine all 3 levels last year, it was 9. So it was almost 1 strikeout per inning. And for me as a reliever, that's huge. I just I think that's what they need to do with this bullpen is bring in these guys that can strike out, not solely pitch to contact, which is a lot of what we have right now. And it's usually the middle leverage guys that are the pitch to contact, and that just worries me because a lot of these players are really good. You might pitch the ball where you need to, and like the perfect spot, and it's hit out because these guys are really good hitters.
I guess as a note, for one, a lot of the pitch movement metrics we do get from these levels are really dumbed down because of the environments. At higher altitudes, pitches are just not going to move as much, especially fastballs. So for a guy like Mikhail Ament or Juan Murillo, who usually have like an 18 IVB, that could probably be like 20 given a different environment, which doesn't seem like a lot. But when you're a batter, your bat is only about probably maybe 1.5 inches, 2 inches thick. So these are like sizable differences. Also, as a note on the stats, ERA in these leagues is sky high. Having a low 5 is considered to be kind of good.
I just ignored it. Like I was like, these leagues ERA doesn't mean anything.
Yeah, you might as well just take the ERA and shove it where the sun don't shine because that is about how good it is for these leagues. But I guess if I wanted to use his, he had a 3.46 in his limited time in Amarillo, which for ERA doesn't seem that special. You're like, okay, solid reliever. In Amarillo, he might as well have been Jeff Hoffman. He might as well have been Tanner Scott.
You're talking me into it even more. You're talking. Yeah, you can just stop right there, Nugget. I don't need any more information on Lister. I'm already putting him on my list.
Yeah. Anytime you see like a sub-4 ERA and it says Amarillo or Reno, just know that is really, really good.
Yes. Reno.
I think even like PCL. I think even Brandon Pfaadt had like a 5 ERA in Reno. Yeah. So that just lets you know how difficult it is to pitch there.
I think his season where he got onto the top 100, he was only like a 3.94, but that just kind of speaks to like how insane the environment can be.
Yeah, I remember watching a bunch of because I was starting to watch a little more minor league baseball, especially some aces, because I was really interested in Pfaadt, and it seemed like he would have so many games where he go like 6-7 innings, strike a ton of dudes out, but would give up 3 or 4 runs, maybe sometimes even a little bit more, obviously, but it always seemed like it was the home run ball, whether it was one that was an actual home run or whether it was a Coors Field Junior where you're like, yeah, that's probably a fly out in most major league ballparks. it is one of those things where, like Nugget and even Brandon and Gabe said, you got to take some of those minor league numbers and ERAs with a grain of salt, and not necessarily look at that, kind of looking back at some, or look a little bit deeper than some of the surface stats say.
I guess to kind of go with that, I'll kind of swing it to another guy. It was talked about on the last time I was here. It's Kyle Backus. Kyle Backus, if I had to make the best description, it's a mirror image of Ryan Thompson. Really elite extension. We're talking about 7.1 to 7.2, which is extremely high. Average is only about 6.3, 6.4. And with that, he's coming at you with a sinker at about 92, 93, and the slider's only about 78 to 82. But the underlying numbers are really impressive. Some really high ground ball rates, closer to like 60% on some. In addition, I guess I'll just note some of his expected stats. Sorry if this is a little bit dorky, but his slider had an expected batting average against of 0.117. Expected on base was 0.218. Expected slug 0.201, which if you add that up for expected OPS, that is a 419 OPS. So if in a neutral environment, that's what it was expected. The sinker's not bad either. The sliders is whiff pitch though. It's about 35%. It's not a super, I wouldn't say like a tough arsenal. Like it's not an arsenal that you would be going insane over, but it's definitely one where it's a guy that I think the team would love. It's similar to a Joe Mantiply in a way.
Say I could get down on, we're talking about the all-star Joe Mantiply, right? Not the one that we got in like 22, 23.
Yeah, World Series starter Joe Mantiply.
Oh man, what a time, what a dark time it was. Yeah, even I like Gabe shaking his head. He's like, no, please. But yeah, say do make a good point there. It does look like maybe not as like, I know Ryan Thompson seems definitely more of a like the way he starts, he definitely like hunches over a little bit more, but I can kind of see what you're talking about with like the arm angle. And I'm not a numbers guy, but I know that, I'm like a caveman with it. Low numbers in OPS, whether it's expected or real OPS, I know that means it's a good pitch and it's doing something effective.
I guess I could also note, I want to thank Thomas Mistico for this image. There's a specific thing on his AAA stats, which I found very interesting. If we have that.
I think Brandon might have had it loaded up. There we go.
So this would be a good example of some sort of StatCast data that we have on him, and this is just from AAA. There's a few little things that are concerns, but it's more about throwing strikes than anything. As we can see, like against the guys don't hit him hard. He's decently in the zone, has some solid strikeout rates, and the ground ball rate is quite high for the level. The numbers against, especially in the exit velocity area, is what really impresses me, because these are the kind of leagues where the side armors and guys who do rely on that wonky movement to kind of play out. And in these leagues, they tend to get blown up pretty handedly. There's one name like that. I think it was Dakota Chalmers last year. He was supposed to be very hyped up. They brought him in on an NRI, and he had a pretty funky arm angle and some decent stuff, but just got blown up because of how this league can act. So these numbers, at least to me, I found to be quite impressive. And I do think that probably within the next 1 or 2 months in the season, he actually does get called up.
I'd be okay with that. Say, Gabe, I want to get your thoughts on Backus. I know you're a big fan of getting as many lefties in whether the rotation or bullpen. I know that it's a topic that you're always bringing up because it is a great point. You got to have a little bit of a balance. But what's some of your thoughts on Mr. Backus?
Yeah, he's a guy I've been keeping an eye on for a while now since they've had him, just because of the fact he's a lefty. He's very good. He has a 3.94 in Reno, which is, again, we were saying, is ridiculous. Like when you have something like that, it might as well just be Randy Johnson or something. Like it's just really, really hard to have those sort of numbers. The only real hit against him in Reno is just that he had a lot more walks. He had 18 walks compared to 38 strikeouts. Not terrible, but also not great. But just the fact that he's able to have, an 84, 85, I think, exit velocity, average in Reno, it tells you a lot about the type of guy he is. He also does get a lot of swing and miss. So he was somebody I thought was going to get called up last year. And so the fact that he wasn't kind of surprised me. There was some more chatter about him getting called up potentially because of how many injuries we had. and he never came to fruition. But he was somebody, it seemed, that the organization was paying attention to just in case someone else went down in the bullpen. And that's kind of like the one thing we had last year was just mostly health in the bullpen, other than Seawald, unfortunately. Um, but yeah, I do think, like what Nugget said, maybe about a month or two into the season, depending on how Joe Mantiply, because I believe we still have Joe Mantiply, how good he's performing, how good Ryan Thompson's performing. And he scuffled a lot. He really struggled last year. Depending on how some of these guys are performing, I could see Kyle getting called up at some point in late April or early May.
Yeah, I believe we're still going to be out on Kyle Nelson for a little bit. I know he had a little bit of I think it was a shoulder issue. I'm not sure necessarily the timetable for return on him, so I wouldn't be surprised maybe Backus kind of slides into that role, because it's still, in my opinion, you need more than one lefty in the bullpen. And I know Joe can be really solid at times, but if Backus can be, like Nugget said, keep the control issue down and kind of like, make sure he's using that sinker and kind of getting some of that soft contact that he looks like he's been really solid at, especially with that slider, I think that'd be a really nice addition to this pen. But Brandon, I want to get some of your thoughts on Mr. Backus as well.
He's speechless.
Yeah, you're muted, sir. Can't hear you still. Nope, looks like your mic, it doesn't want you to talk. Nope, nothing still. Sorry for the technical difficulties here, ladies and gentlemen. The last few streams, whether it's connection or sometimes some of our audio, does not like to play well with us. So Brandon should be joining in just in a second. But any other things? It looks like he's joining in. And now can we hear him?
Can you hear me?
Yes, sir. We can hear you now.
Okay. That was very weird. I'm not sure what was going on. But as I was saying, Backus has been with this team since the 2021. And if you look, like, he's gone up each level each year. Like, he started in Visalia, Hillsboro to Amarillo to Reno, like every year. So logically, next step, Reno to Phoenix. And just like looking at his actual stuff, that left, like Nugget said, it's Ryan Thompson from the other side. And he also does strike, like, pretty good strikeout numbers. His best year was in 22. It was 13.4 strikeouts per 9. So to me, that's really impressive. And just last year in Reno alone, he had it was 10.7. So I want them to give him a chance. Because like we said, Kyle Nelson is probably not going to be back. What other lefty options do you have outside of Joe Mantiply? Are you going to put Jordan Montgomery as a lefty specialist out of the pen? Because I know I wouldn't feel very great, because that's not what he's done his entire career.
No.
So I wouldn't feel comfortable with that. So yeah, and I think we brought up Kyle Backus last year in spring training, someone to keep an eye on.
Yeah, so he just got lit up a little bit, so that's why I think he was in the first 2-3 weeks.
I guess as a note, a lot of rumors right now, at least from what I've been reading through, the D-backs are looking for a left-handed reliever, probably a more solidified guy. Two names I've heard of the names that haven't come off already on the board was Brooks Raley and then Colin Poche. Both are kind of that lower velo guy. And I guess to transition to the next name, Colin Poche is strangely reminiscent of one Mr. Kyle Backus. Not Kyle Backus, Kyle Ament. Sorry, I keep mixing them up. But the other Kyle is Kyle Ament, except this one is a righty. Kyle Ament is a kind of strange name. Everything about him, when you first watch him, you don't think much of it. You think 91 from a decent slot. He's almost over the top on his head. I would say almost a 65-degree arm slot, which is ridiculous. The 91 to 92 doesn't seem that impressive until you realize it started getting upwards of 20 IVB when he was in Hillsboro, and it showed in his strikeout numbers as well. He also has a buzzsaw cutter that can basically neutralize batters. and also a curveball, which he basically just throws like a screwball. That's all I can call it because it's going to back up, and it does that thing. He had an article, I think it was with Steve Gilbert about it in specific, where he talks about like, yeah, I basically just throw it like a screwball. And the biggest thing I'll say is if you like strikeout rates, he had a 40.3% strikeout rate, which goes up to like a 15 or 16 K per nine. And if you can, and obviously like some of his expected numbers aren't stunning, he had some control issues, but you could just see here the whiff percentage against, the hard hit rate against. Guys could not hit Kyle Ament at all.
Yeah, so even like I know the again ERA and all that sometimes in the minor league and whatnot maybe isn't the big thing to look at, but he had a 2.86 ERA in the minors last year. Obviously, he was in 3 teams. Looked like he made it all the way from Hillsboro to Amarillo to Reno. Reno got touched up a little bit, had like a 5.25 ERA, but again, it's Reno. Kind of take that out of the equation. But in Amarillo, had a 2.89 ERA across 18 and 2/3 innings. And I know you talked about his high release point. That's always, I know it's maybe not exactly the same release point, but it looks a lot like Josh Colementor-esque to me.
What I was gonna say.
It was not a flamethrower, but my goodness, did he have some effective outings here in the desert when it came to just being able to get guys out with his funky stuff.
Yeah, Ament definitely comes from a weirder slot. And I guess as a note as well, his extension is incredibly good. So he's coming at you from the slot, not only from a really high angle, he's also coming at you way farther out than most guys would. He's probably going to have his fastball play up a bit like that. It probably looks closer to 95, 96, purely from the fact that he's getting way out in front when he's getting that pitch off.
Chicks dig the long ball, and they also dig the extension. Gabe, pass it to you. What's the thoughts that you have on Mr. Ament?
Yeah, but you guys talking about the Colementor thing. There is another guy, I can't remember his name. I have to look it up later. That he reminds me of. But yeah, just great numbers in Amarillo. I know he got touched up in Reno, but again, it's Reno. It's gonna happen like that 5 ERA. It's kind of what you're expecting. But just the fact that a lot of these guys are moving up so quickly, as soon as they hit the A ball, they've been moving up to Double A and Triple A. So that's a really good sign from them. Again, the only hit with him would be the walks. Maybe if he can get that a little bit under control. But again, with it being Reno, fastballs don't move as well, and some of the off speed is just not going to move as well as like we've seen in Colorado. Just when you're throwing the sliders and curveballs, they just end up in the middle of the zone, even if you have a really good hard drop on them usually. So he is an interesting guy to keep an eye on. I don't know if we're going to see him this year necessarily, unless he has an outstanding spring, which we could see. Again, he pitched decently in Reno and facing off against the same sort of guys he saw in Reno here with a little bit of a better, I guess slightly more fair environment. Hopefully his numbers can really show what he's truly worth.
Yeah, so that is a good point with a lot of these guys we've discussed tonight. Seem to be high risers. And it is tough obviously with the D-backs competing. It's not like they were back in like 21, 22 where they really have a chance to kind of give some of these guys just a spot to let them, get some MLB time. There's definitely going to be some tough battles, some tough decisions, but hey, like you said, if he really shows out in spring, he could be a guy that maybe Bryce Jarvis struggles, maybe Ament really makes an impression. They want Jarvis to kind of get some more work down in the minors, and Ament kind of like, steals that spot from him. I don't fully guarantee it, but crazier things have happened. But Brandon, what are some of your thoughts on Mr. Ament? And I'm going to just call him Colementor Jr. at times.
First of all, he's a big man. 6'5", 237, according to Baseball Reference. So yeah, like it's coming right over the top, so it's like even higher. Like it's just like you feel like you're waiting forever for that ball to get there. But like if you just like did really good in the minors outside of Reno, like definitely like I don't know if it was too soon or the competition, he had 13 games. His whip was over 2. So I'm like, ugh. Not good. Again, it's the PCL, so you kind of like there, but he looked really good through Hillsborough and Amarillo. Just like striking out dudes left and right. 18.2 in Hillsborough, 14.5 in Amarillo. He played in the Arizona Fall League, 5 games, 4.76 ERA, 4 walks, so that's a little much in 5 2/3. So he made a big jump in terms of development. So I personally don't see if he's pitching on the major league roster, we have a lot of injuries. That's the only way that I see him. Just 5-6 guys deep in the bullpen, injury wise.
I figured out the comp. Brian Presley. I forgot his name for a second. Ryan Presley.
Presley.
If you look at the delivery, it's the same thing. Just kind of a little herc, and then just like coming in from right at the 12 o'clock arm slot. But yeah, he's just, if you got that arm slot and you got like a nasty changeup or something, you're going to be cooking.
I guess one thing I'll note just with a lot of these non-roster invites is that while they're not necessarily the judge, they do act as a good judge of what the organization believes to be the best guys or the guys that will have the best shot at making it up to the 40-man roster and to MLB in this season. One name popped up here. He's our number 9 prospect right now that I was a little shocked that he actually got the call, considering that he only just touched Amarillo. It's one Mr. Lou James Gino Groover. Gino is a fun name to watch. There's not much else to say. This dude is just a treat. Contact skills are just everywhere. We're talking about a swinging strike rate that's in it. I think it was in AA or combined. It was swinging strike rate was only like 7.2%, which is incredibly low, mind you. Like that is very low for a batter. He has some just really impressive play at the plate. He's almost wise beyond his years. This looks like almost like a Ketel Marte at the plate. This doesn't look like a guy who just got to AA. The one concern that you would have with him with the bat is his power. He faced a wrist injury and has suffered multiple fractures. His hand was mincemeat for a portion of the season. And he actually noted that when he got down, like right before he swung, his hand would start tightening up and it would make it hard for him to really swing for power. Despite that, in his limited time in Amarillo, he still had 1,000 OPS. It's believed that power will come back a bit. The only other thing that really holds him back is the glove. It's not really there yet. He's actually being currently molded for third base because of Eugenio Suarez hitting a free agent market going into 2026. And honestly, if he keeps up with this pace, it would not shock me if we see him at MLB level later in the season. And depending on how it goes, on a playoff roster too.
Yeah, so he's been a name that I imagine a lot of Dbacks fans have been pretty familiar with, or at least getting themselves familiar with because of, I believe he was drafted out of North Carolina State. It seems like very rare that the Dbacks kind of draft any like college hitters. It seems like all the college guys that get our arms because we've joked about it before. They love them some below 6 foot, fast, speedy, weak-armed outfielders from high school. So it'll be very rare to get a hitter that's actually from college. And it does seem I've heard kind of some of the same things that you're mentioning about like he just seems like wise beyond his years. It seems like he kind of like is I guess like a major leaguer when it comes to like some of the plate approach he has. And I didn't know like now that you brought it up, I know it's only 13 games, but the fact that he did have 1,000 OPS with a pretty messed up hand, which hey, shocking breaking news, hitters really need their hands to be healthy to swing a bat. I know, crazy concept. The fact that he was able to put 1,000 OPS is some pretty solid and intriguing stuff. So I'm definitely going to be interested in him. And, like you said, maybe you won't see enough of him this year. But I think at least going into next year, especially spring training next year, he'll probably be a guy that could potentially be fighting, especially if we let Naylor walk. If we don't want to have Pavin be our first baseman. I could see Gino making a good case for himself to be the kind of next man up. But Gabe, I want to hear what you have to say about the groove man, Gino.
Yeah, I mean, he's a stud. Like, there's no other way to put it. This dude is great. Just that name in general. I mean, just I can just imagine, the merchandising that they can do around that sort of name. So, he's a great player, at least offensively. He's still very young. He's only 22, but he turns 23 in a couple months from now. But still, just the fact that he's still very young, he still has time to develop. He's just out of college. He got drafted in 2023. So he's not, like you said, he's not like these other guys that we have who are right out of high school and are 5'8". Like, this is a guy who is a little bit more ready for the major leagues sooner than later. Like we're talking about with Gino. Gino at some point is gonna have not re-signed with his team. So I don't know what his future holds. Like, I can't see the D-backs bringing him back for any reason, and so that third base spot is open. Same with Naylor. These spots are going to be open, and depending on what happens this year, how Gino develops, how Lawler develops, we could see an infield of Jordan Lawler at first base because he's 6'4", Gino 6'1" at third base, and then Perdomo short, and then Cattell at second, and that would be just. I feel like the vibes would be off the charts, and we would just have 4 Gold Glove defenders in the infielder, which is ridiculous. So the future is looking bright. I think Gino, more than some of these other guys, has a real shot to be called up in September. If not, then again, he'll be one of the main guys that this organization is looking forward to for next spring training.
Yes, not only would we have some pretty solid guys around the infield, have some pretty unique names too. We got Geraldo, obviously, not too many Geraldos in the game. Cattell, I think there's only at least until we see another one come up, maybe Cattell is going to be a name that people name their own kid down the road. But Nugget kind of brought it up when he brought him up. Lou James Groover. Lou James is a pretty sick first name. I'm not gonna lie.
His name's Gino Groover. That dude better have some smooth bat skills. I'm sorry. If your last name is Groover, you better play smooth. That is just has to be a part of your game. Also, we draft some funny names. 2023, what else did we have? We had Tommy Troy, Jack Hurley,
I still say Drew Jones isn't it DRU, but it's actually isn't
DRU.
it U? I still spell it DRUW. I always throw the W in there for no reason, just because I know who his father. But
yeah,
I mean, Lou James is like Ricky Bobby levels of a real name on there.
Yeah,
we had Caden Grice too.
Yeah, dude, yeah, I like that. Grice is. I don't know why I like that name. Brandon, what are some of your thoughts on the Groove Man, Gino Groover, and as keeping an eye on him, and what kind of stuck out to you so far?
Yeah, like we said, his name's Groover, so you better groove that baseball, son. Like, you better, the fact that he did all this with an injured wrist is just I'm like, what? Like, you did this with being hurt? Can you imagine what he's going to do now with that wrist is going to be healed? I still think that, I know a lot. They've been doing him at second and third. I wouldn't mind him playing a little bit more first base, because that is also a spot where long term, what are we doing there? Like, first and third, it feels like we have no outfield set for the next 15 years. I swear that we are good to go in the outfield. What are we doing at the corners? I feel like this team doesn't really have a plan for that. So yeah, Gino, if you want to be a stud at either one of those spots, that would put my mind at ease, knowing that we are good to go. But yeah, no, I've been on the Gino Groover train for quite a bit, so I'm very excited to see how much of spring does he play, because a lot of these younger non-roster guys, they last the first week and a half, 2 weeks, and then when they make those first cuts, yeah, it's these guys that they're like, yeah, we just want to see you for a week or two. have you come up here and
Get familiar with the
interact.
coaches.
Yeah, like I feel like that's the big thing. And then for like a lot of the people in the front office, like to see them with their own eyes at workouts and practice and in games instead of just watching film. So yeah, hopefully we see some more. I still think him potentially in September is pretty bold. Just because he barely made it to Double A last year. So, but if he continues to do what he does, he might be in Reno by the middle of the year. So yeah, he like could be a good spot to bring up.
I believe he was first cuts in last year's spring training because I know, obviously, him, Barossa, Ivan Melendez. Like, I was there for the opening spring training game against the Rockies, and there was a bunch of guys like that. But it seemed like those were kind of the first group of guys that were obviously, sent down. They're like, hey, we wanted to get some eyes on you. Very small chance that you made the roster, obviously, but at least the coaches got familiar with him.
I kind of wanted to go to a point that Brandon made, and it honestly is a good point. The only other prospect that really profiles for first base that is above high A right now would be Ivan Melendez. And Ivan Melendez, while love the Hispanic Titanic, and I love the fact that he's got some power, that dude cannot stop chasing pitches. So,
Yes.
yeah. So, yeah. Yeah, if the best way I could say it, he's kind of like a Kevin Crone right now. So the best way to put it is they kind of need Gino Groover to play out a little bit better. So in 2026, if he's at least close to MLB, they could feel a little bit more comfy. I guess as my last name to go to, it's actually a former top prospect of ours, about 2020, 2021. This was a huge name. He was all over the place, and then he unfortunately did suffer a mental breakdown. It resulted in an altercation with an officer and ultimately left him being deported from the United States. But at some point in 2023, he was able to get back, and he's finally getting back on track, even though just a bit older. It's Christian Robinson. Christian Robinson is a fun name to watch. If you want to talk about like raw tools, there's probably not many people better. Christian Robinson hits the ball with authority. He just pummels the baseball. He was in fall league, ripped the ball apart, was hitting balls upwards of 115 miles an hour, had some not wonderful contact numbers, but that just seems to be a factor of his game. He's 6'4". It's just going to kind of happen with him. The defense is awesome to watch. He has a cannon of an arm too. The other thing I guess I'll note is his speed is one of the most underrated aspects of him. In the fall league, he had the fastest sprint speed of anyone there. He was actually the fastest Diamondback. If we use that same sprint speed, he's the fastest Diamondback each of the past 2 seasons. Faster than Corbin, faster than Lawler, faster than Jake. He is a bunch of raw tools, but if you can get this guy to kind of work it out and like fix it up a bit, he can really be one of the better names in our outfield. He is a bit older, but he's a guy that I would not be shocked at all if he's like a middle season call up. He's old enough now to where an impressive showing in Reno and another guy or two started having like issues. Someone maybe just struggles a bit and they go down to Reno. They DFA a guy. Welcome to MLB. Christian Robinson.
Gotta say, K-Rob was a name that when him and Alec were kind of some of our like top like 2 or 3 prospects, he was a guy that I was very interested. Obviously, like you brought up, he had some of the legal trouble and all that, which thankfully he's kind of put behind him. But one of the things I noticed, I know it's just a short clip. There's only 3 home runs in there, but it does seem like he goes the opposite field. It's nice to not see some of these guys just be absolute pull happy. Like if you can have some power going to the opposite field, I definitely am a big fan of that. Especially I feel like at Chase Field is one of those ballparks saw for years, guys like Walker, Goldie. I know like they're more first baseman, but still like they were really able to use all sides of the field, and be kind of nice to see Christian kind of dial in some of the same things.
I guess I'll note. I saw a chance say this to just put in perspective how fast Christian Robinson has been. He's almost 1 foot per second faster than Corbin Carroll.
That's crazy. He's taller too. Would you say like 6'4"?
Yeah, he's a behemoth. That dude. Okay, I actually got to, and this would be a little bit of a tangent. I got to see this dude live. He's honestly scary to stand next to because that dude is built like a truck. Like, wow.
I'm trying to find his height. Looks like he is
6'4".
foot. Yeah, 6'3", 190.
Yeah,
And he is big.
that
He's
yeah.
beefy.
I also note, just kind of as a last little note, when you watch him hit, and I warn this now, if he hits a home run, it looks like a pop-up. It will look like that. If you want to go back to the clips, it always just kind of does that. It doesn't look wonderful off the bat. It'll just be like, oops, and just slowly but surely just flies out.
Just keeps going and going and going.
Yeah, like I guess we'll see like one more here, like, oops, poked at it. It should be a fly out, right? Nope. Back, and gone. It's just one of the funnier things about his game, though. It's just like, and I keep watching his clips and I keep seeing that. And there's a few guys kind of like that.
107 exit velo on that second home run, by the way.
Yeah.
I like that.
In terms of like a raw power guy, the only name I could think of that would probably match up to him would be like an Ivan Melendez. Like, he's got raw power in it.
I'd be okay with a little bit of a Hispanic Titanic power coming from the outfield, especially. It's not like you had me when you said he had some good arm strength, because like I said at the beginning of the show, I watched those Gerardo Parra highlights, and seeing him just gun dudes out with like no hops, like it's something that I haven't really seen from too many D-backs in the last few years. So it would definitely be a nice thing kind of added defensively to the team. But Gabe, what are some of your some of the things? Obviously, I know it's a name that we're decently familiar with. We've talked about him a little bit, especially the same time last year on the show. But what are some of your thoughts and whatnot that you're going to kind of be keeping an eye when it comes to K-Rob coming into spring training?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's funny that Nugget called him one of the, like, said that he's a little bit older. He just turned 24, like about a month ago. He's still very, very young.
Yeah.
He has a lot of potential. Like we said, he was out of the league and out of organized baseball for a couple of years too. So he's just coming back, getting his swing back into action, getting his body back into shape. Like, this takes a little bit of time, and it seems like he's starting to really come around and become the player that we thought he could be when he was on those prospect lists. And we would look at, Alec Thomas, Christian Robinson as the future center fielders and outfield, right fielders, whatever positions it would be of this organization. And it looks like at some point, maybe again, depending on how spring goes, he could come up if he goes down to AAA and he does really good in AAA. And I know we don't want to think about it, but Gurriel does have an opt-out after this season as well. If he opts out, we have an opening there. And if Christian Robinson, hits the way he did in Reno, he gets better contact and, doesn't strike out as much. He looks like the guy that we all expected him to look like. He could be a guy to watch for next spring training. And we've been talking about him for quite a while now, since we started this podcast in December of 23, I believe. We talked about him then. We talked about him, spring training. And we're going to talk about him again because this is a guy that we all want to see. He seems to be a legitimately great person as well. So you can never have too many good guys in a clubhouse.
Yes, I'm surprised that so many teams kind of passed up on him. I know he was unprotected when it came to the Rule 5 draft. I know the other factors like teams and like their own 40-man roster kind of comes into play there. But he was definitely a name that I assumed some team would take a flyer on, and I'm very glad they didn't, because I'm very hyped on K-Rob, and I'm definitely going to try to get to as many spring games as I can, even though they're stupidly expensive for fucking spring training game. That's hot take and not a thing I can take. But I'll save that for another. I'll save that for when we get closer to the spring training. But definitely
Yeah,
name.
watch him outside anywhere else. I got $5 lawn tickets from the Royals a couple years ago, so just don't watch him at Salt River.
Yeah, that's a good point. But Brandon, kind of passing on to you. What are some of your thoughts on K-Rob and what you're going to be looking for with his non-roster invite?
Like we've discussed, it feels like he's been on this team forever. I mean, it's what happens when you get drafted at 18 years old.
Yeah, he's not a baby anymore, but he's not old.
Like he was out of baseball for like 3 years. Like the last time he played was 2019, and then he didn't play again until he was 22 years old in 2023. Has always been one of our more like top-rated prospects. Baseball prospectus in 2021 had him at number 15. Like that's crazy. Like you would he was the guy before Corbin was the guy. Like that's what blows my mind with Christian Robinson. Now looking back at his stats at MRL, strikeouts are a little concerning. Like strikeouts are a little concerning. But he's 23 years old. He's still so young. I think Hazen should dabble him out for trade to improve that major league roster.
I guess I'll note something with Christian Robinson. During his time with, I think it was Hillsborough, he had a 500-foot home run at Hillsborough, which is if you know anything about the Hillsborough ballpark, you're lucky to get a ball hit over 410, let alone 500 feet.
Did Jordan Montgomery make an appearance for the other team? I'm sorry. I had to make
that. No, I get it. No, it was JB Wendelken.
Oh, damn. Okay. Another former D-back right there. Wow.
No, I'm joking.
Oh. Yeah, that's actually, I didn't know that he had a 500. I think there's another D-back in the minor leagues that did it. Leandro something, forgetting his last name. But so I know that he was in definitely a more hitter-friendly environment, I believe, in either Amarillo or Reno. But
I think it was Juan Cedeno. That was the 527 at Amarillo.
Yeah, dude, that's insane. Anything over that's like I barely even hit that in MLB The Show at Coors Field where I'm hitting with guys like juiced up Ohtani and Reggie Stalker. That's
on rookie mode, by the way.
Yeah, on rookie mode when I'm getting fastballs just fed down the middle. Like I'm.
Also, I believe one of the first clip is against Jack Leiter, right? It's like 95, 96 mile per hour fastball that he hits.
Yeah.
Yep.
It's also one of the funnier things because he also does this weird thing with his swing. The less powerful it looks, the more powerful it is. Like if it's pulled way inside and it looks like he's really strong, he didn't actually really get to it. But if he looks relaxed, like, oops, I popped it up, that's the one that he hit 114. Like
Snelling
here
was a top prospect, isn't he?
Yeah, Robbie Snelling. He's Marlins org now. He was one of the Padres' top prospects.
That's right. I thought that name sounded familiar. But yes, I definitely a lot to kind of. I like that you saved, maybe not the best for last. Obviously, all the guys that you mentioned definitely have a lot of bright spots to them. A lot of things that could, add to this team. Could be something to look out for, especially when it comes to kind of familiarizing ourselves with some of the names that are down in the minors. Because it's not like these are guys that are just drafted where we're not going to see them for 3-4 years. These are guys that we could potentially see, whether it's a mid-season call-up or a late season addition, whether it's an injury or anything like that. These are definitely some names to keep out, or again, keep an eye on and kind of maybe track some of the progression. So we're not, too surprised and caught off guard when we potentially hear their name called. I know it's we're running on like an hour and 18 here. So again, appreciate all you guys in the comments and everybody's still listening along here. So we'll kind of wrap things up here. We'll get some final thoughts in. Nugget, I want to pass it to you first. What are some of your final thoughts, whether on I know we talked about like Grichuk and then some of the rumors and then even some of the NRI guys that we have on the docket?
More than anything, I'll just say that as fans, it's kind of hard to look at things objectively. And sometimes I think we kind of, I don't want to say get full of ourselves, but sometimes we kind of like try and look too much at things. I will say this, the roster is going to change and there will be serious changes to it by the time spring training ends. There will be names cut. There'll be names added in. There's going to be a closer added in there. Probably there'll be an extra lefty. We could see some big names come in. We could see names come out. It's just part of baseball, but it's one of the best times of the year. Just go out to a game, enjoy it. You live in Arizona, do it. It's the one benefit to living in this hellhole. So please, please, please go see a spring training game, preferably the D-backs.
Yeah, and bring some sunscreen because even though it is nice weather out there, the sun will still bake the hell out of you. Learn from my mistakes. Whether it's 75, 80 degrees, the sun will still cook you like a lobster. But Gabe, what are some of your final thoughts from our discussions here on obviously Grichuk, the rumors between some of our outfielders, and then also the non-roster invitees?
Yeah, I mean, like Nugget saying, like if there's going to be, real changes, they kind of have to be done now. Like if they're going to get any sort of other pitcher, any sort of other batter, do it now because pitchers and catchers report in literally 1 week from now. And we've seen it happen time and time and again. If these guys take a really long time to get into, to camp with everyone else and with these coaches, they really, really struggle. And some of them never are able to recover for the season. So if they're going to make any moves, make it now. And also in terms of these prospects that they have, this team does have a lot of great guys and a lot of guys with a lot of upside. Like it's just because they're not the Dodgers, they don't get highly rated every single time, even though all these supposed great Dodger prospects have been absolutely bust the last like 5 or 6 years. So I don't know what it is. I don't know. They must be paying these baseball prospectus people or something because there's no way some of these guys are as highly rated as they should be. But, hopefully we're able to see some of these guys again. K-Rob, great guy. I would love to see him be able to reach the major leagues. Like even for one at bats, I do think it's still a really great story and good to see him persevere.
Yeah, so definitely, maybe they're using some of Ipe's money to kind of pay off some of these prospect analysis people. But Brandon, the man with the new Jordan Lawler jersey, showing it off. Nice little purchase there. Pretty sweet. What are some of your final thoughts here on what we've discussed here this evening?
There are a lot of guys in this system that we should be ready to see here over the next probably, I'd say 2-3 years. So definitely try to familiar yourself with some of these names. Like it said, if you're in Arizona, when the games start, try and go to a game. Go ahead, have fun. I would suggest if you can during the week, because if Saturday and Sunday games are extremely packed. So if you're like someone that doesn't like watching a game with someone sitting right next to you, maybe try and go to one during the week. But if that's not something that you can do, it is what it is. But definitely try and check this team out before the season starts. And I agree with what Nugget said. Like this roster is going to be completely different, probably just within the next 30 days. Like I think there's still a lot of moves that this team is going to make. I still think we need another right-handed bat in this lineup. Definitely need a actual closer because I still am not comfortable them throwing out AJ Puck and Justin Martinez. Like they are good pitchers. I just don't think they are that lights out closer. I just don't think they're ready to make that decision. But no, it's going to be a fun spring and fun season.
Yeah, so a lot of roster moves, like Nugget even said, you got to keep little subjective with some of the moves being made. Could be some heartbreak for people that we're really big fans of. Could be some names that we don't expect, but just kind of keep an open mind. Trust in Hazen, let him cook. He cooks often, and when he usually does, it seems like he's at least putting out a 3-course meal, sometimes even a bigger course meal. You never know what to look out for. But yeah, especially the spring training games, not even just at Salt River Fields. There's a lot of there's 14, 13, because I know some teams share facilities. So there's 10 plus spring training fields here to go look out. Peoria Sports Complex is always fun. I've been to the Angels one last year. That one was pretty nice. So any chance you get to see the D-backs, especially outside of Talking Stick or Salt River Fields, when they're not super expensive, take the chance. Go enjoy some nice, good weather before we, have to worry about sweating our ass off in a humid 85% sweat factory that is Chase Field, especially come opening day when it's, at least we finally got the cool roof opening music back. That's a nice positive, but Again, we have been D-Backs Dispatch. Special shout out and thanks to our man Nugget here joining us for another fun episode. A little bit of a deeper dive into some of these names that maybe we're not too familiar with. Again, follow us on Twitter and Blue Sky as well. Got a bunch of banger memes on there. It'll give you guys some laughs, maybe give you guys some insight and get that brain kind of turning a little bit. Join the Discord as well. It's in the description. It's free. It's popping off. Great place to meet and chat with other D-Backs fans as well. Potentially planning some even spring training meetups. I know all four of us, Josh included, have a little bit of a tough schedule here and there, but we're trying to get at least one spring training kind of meetup game scheduled. So Discord's a great place to kind of keep in touch on that. And as well, go check out everything over on azsnakepit.com. As we're getting closer to spring training, a lot of great pieces coming out daily, even sometimes 3 or 4 pieces a day. So a lot of great content for you guys to read and catch up on and make sure you're staying as in touch and up to date with the Diamondbacks as you possibly can. But like I said, in the meantime, hopefully we'll be live. We don't have the exact day, but we should be live before pitchers and catchers report. So you guys know what to do, and that is be here at D-Backs Dispatch, and we'll see you on the next episode. Peace.
It's the D-Backs Dispatch. Let's go. Yeah, Red Gabe, Josh on the floor. West Coast vibes, catch us on the air. Home running dogs, diamond gems we share. Brandon was his dad, Caesar man was a plan. Red brace it down, tells it like it is, man. Gabs on fire, brings the heat every time. Josh on the mix, keep the beat so prime. I got the insight, 7 weeks to hit. Tune in, D-Backs Dispatch, this is it. Now we rollin'. D-Backs Dispatch, yeah. Talk to Brandon Gabe, this is Big Catch. Josh on the mix, he makes the beats. West Coast vibe, got the G fucking the band. The home Mac, the home Mac, the home Mac, home Mac. D-Backs Dispatch, we here to stay. Yeah, catch us every week, we bring the flavor to it. We got the home Mac, the home Mac, the home Mac, home Mac. D-Backs Dispatch, we here to stay. Catch us every week, we bring the flavor to it.